Welcome, dear friends, to Mindful Mondays. I'm your host, Ashley Bentley, and this is your space to slow down, turn inward, and honor your lived, embodied, neurodivergent world, right here on the Neurodivergent Experience podcast. And as we step into January, there's a collective feeling in the air, isn't there? A sense of newness, of possibility, of wanting things to be different. January arrives carrying a quiet question for so many of us. What do I want to change? And that question isn't wrong, but the way we usually approach it often is. So this month on Mindful Mondays, we're going to be doing something a little different. Rather than piling more pressure onto ourselves, we're going to gently deconstruct how change actually works, especially for a nervous system that feels deeply, processes intensely, and takes in more of the world than most. So all through January, we'll be exploring what I call the anatomy of a breakthrough. And I want to say this clearly from the start. A breakthrough is not about becoming someone else or fixing what's wrong with you or even trying harder. It's about starting from the place where transformation naturally unfolds. So what do we mean by a breakthrough? When people hear the word breakthrough, they often imagine something dramatic, like a big external shift or a sudden transformation, or a moment where everything changes at once. And it can look like that sometimes. But most real breakthroughs are quieter than that. A breakthrough might be a moment of self-trust where there used to be self-doubt. A softening of an old internal battle. A boundary that finally feels natural instead of forced. Or a mindset shift that changes how you meet your life. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs happen entirely on the inside, and then everything else rearranges itself afterward. And this understanding has been shaped by many teachers over the years, including the work of Tony Robbins, who speaks about breakthroughs not as personality traits, but as processes. And that distinction really matters, because if breakthroughs are processes, then they're learnable, repeatable, and available to you exactly as you are today. And I do want to give clear credit here, because it was Tony Robbins himself who first introduced me to this framework about 6 years ago. And I've been applying it ever since, both in my own personal development and in the work with my clients. And when it's followed correctly, it works. Every time. And what's even more interesting is that when I look back at some of the breakthroughs I experienced before I ever learned this framework, I can see the framework clearly at play, even though I didn't have the language for it then. So this framework that I'm going to teach you all throughout this month is not just a helpful tool. It is the backbone of meaningful, lasting change. Okay, so let's first look at why so often our attempts at change don't stick. When most people approach change, they start by going straight to strategy. New habits, new plans, new routines, new rules for themselves. And when those strategies don't stick, the conclusion is often deeply personal. What's wrong with me? Why can't I just follow through? But here's the truth, especially for your beautiful neurodivergent brain and body. Change rarely fails because of a lack of discipline. It fails because we're working at the wrong level. And to understand why, we need to look at the 3 elements required for a breakthrough, something I like to call the anatomy of a breakthrough. Every breakthrough requires looking at 3 things: your story, your state, and your strategy. And where do most people start? That's right, straight to strategy, but strategy is actually the last place to look. And before we go any further, I want to pause on something quietly essential. Because when we know the why, the reason for wanting something different, our actions stop feeling like chores and start feeling meaningful. Now, some of you will already know exactly what kind of breakthrough you want, and that's wonderful. But there may also be some of you listening thinking, gosh, where do I even begin? And that's where meaning comes in. One of the most powerful ways to uncover your why is to gently imagine your ideal day. Not a perfect day, and not an unrealistic one, but a day that includes all your real responsibilities and also makes room for what nourishes you. How do you wake up? How does your body feel? What pace does the day move at? And where do you feel most like yourself? And from there, we begin to notice something important: our values. When the changes we're trying to make are aligned with what actually matters to us, connection, creativity, calm, integrity, freedom, health, they stop feeling like obligations and they start to feel purposeful. And this is the heart of microdosing meaning. When your goals are rooted in meaning, not shame or comparison or pressure, then each small step begins to feel worthwhile. And that sense of purpose becomes a kind of internal compass, a North Star. And it deeply supports this entire breakthrough process, because meaning reshapes identity and story, and meaning also regulates state. So when your nervous system knows why you're moving in a certain direction, it's far less likely to resist the change. And knowing yourself, your values, your why, those can carry you through your day with all that you do. And that, in essence, is microdosing meaning. And I want to say something really important here, especially if you're listening and thinking, I still don't know what I want to change. Or perhaps there's nothing obviously wrong. I just feel a bit lost. That's okay too. You don't have to have clarity yet. You don't need to have a fully formed goal. When we begin working with our state and our story, something interesting happens. Our values start to reveal themselves naturally. Not as a list, not as a demand, but as a felt sense of what brings ease, meaning, and aliveness. So if you don't know your why yet, that's not a problem. It's all part of the process. As your state steadies and your story softens, your values will show you the way forward. And when they do, you'll have a map that actually belongs to you. So let's look at the first real pillar of a breakthrough, your state. When we talk about state, we're talking about the condition of your nervous system, your body, and your emotional landscape in any given moment. Are you calm or activated? Are you grounded or overwhelmed? Are you connected or are you bracing? If your system is in a state of high alert, your brain is not available for change. When we're activated, in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, the brain shifts into protection mode, and the fear center dominates. Long-term planning goes offline. Creativity narrows, and flexibility disappears. And for a neurodivergent nervous system, this is especially important because your system is already taking in more sensory, emotional, and environmental information at its baseline. That means many of us live closer to the edge of activation, not because we're fragile, but because we're sensitive, perceptive, and deeply responsive. So when we pile January pressure onto a system that's already carrying a lot, the result isn't motivation. It's shutdown, avoidance, or even burnout. This is why state comes first, before mindset, before planning, before action. And this is exactly why nervous system regulation has been such a central theme in my work. From our November neuroscience series, to my one-to-one work, my live teachings, and the courses I've created on Insight Timer. Practices like my 14-day nervous system regulation mastery course aren't about calming you down so that you can tolerate more. They're about building capacity so that your system can feel safe enough to change. And my Morning Mind Magic course is designed to help shape your state at the very beginning of your day, before the world, the news, the inbox, and the noise begins shaping it for you. State is the soil, and nothing grows in soil that feels unsafe. And so once your state begins to stabilize, we can start to notice our story. And when I say story, I don't mean fiction. I mean the narrative your brain uses to explain who you are and what's possible and how the world works and what usually happens next. These stories are not random, they are predictive. Your brain is constantly asking, based on the past, what should I expect next? And for a neurodivergent brain, wired for pattern recognition, these stories can become especially convincing. Stories like, I always burn out, or I never follow through, I'm too much, or things don't last. These narratives shape your emotional state, and your state reinforces the story. It's a loop. It's something we explored deeply in episode 12, 2 Hemispheres, 1 Story, where we looked at how narrative and regulation live in the subtle space between logic and intuition. And the key insight here is this. You don't need to destroy your story, and you don't need to argue with it. You need to see it without becoming it. Because once your state is steadier, stories begin to loosen, and then you can start to edit them, and they become less absolute. And that is where freedom begins. So only now, after state and story, does strategy make sense. And this is where thinkers like Tim Ferriss offer a useful reframe. What would this look like if it were easy? When strategy emerges from a regulated system and a softened story, it often feels simpler and smaller and more obvious. Not dramatic or punishing, just aligned. And this is where many people are surprised. They expect a breakthrough to require more effort. But often, the real breakthrough is needing less force, less self-judgment, less urgency. When the nervous system feels safe and the story shifts, strategy reveals itself naturally. And before we move into today's guided practice, if you are currently driving or operating machinery or need to stay alert, please ensure to pause this episode now and come back to it when you can safely rest and be still. And so, I'd like to invite you to find a quiet, comfortable place, somewhere you feel supported. You might choose to sit or lie down. And just let your body settle in whatever way feels most natural to you right now. And just take a moment to adjust. Perhaps adding a cushion or a blanket, or maybe just a shift in your posture. Good, that's right. And when you feel ready, gently allow your eyes to close. There's nothing you need to do here. Nothing to get right. This is simply an invitation to rest your thinking mind for a while and allow a deeper part of you to listen. The journey I'm about to guide you through is told as a story. You don't need to analyze it or even follow it perfectly. Just let the images, the rhythm, and the atmosphere unfold in their own way. And so, let's begin. There is a road that many people walk, especially at this time of year. The road is lined with expectations, unspoken ones, inherited ones, the kind you pick up without remembering when you agreed to carry them. And now you find yourself walking that road, not rushing, not trying to get anywhere in particular, just walking. And the sky above you is soft and dim. That in-between hour where the day has loosened its grip and the night hasn't fully arrived yet. There is a quiet here, not silence, but a listening kind of stillness. And with each step, you notice something. You are carrying things, not in your hands, but across your shoulders, in your chest, and in the small, tired places behind your eyes. Bundles. Some are wrapped neatly, and some are fraying at the edges. Some you've been carrying for so long that they feel like a part of you. And you don't stop to inspect them. You don't need to. You simply walk. And after a while, without warning, without effort, the road begins to slope gently downward, and the air grows warmer, kinder, and ahead you see a glow. the end of the road, there is a small gathering place. Not a grand hall, just a wide open space with a low stone hearth at its center. And a fire burns there, steady, calm, welcoming. Not roaring or demanding attention, just present. And around the fire, a few figures sit quietly. They don't speak. They don't stare. They simply make room for you. You approach the hearth, and something in your body exhales, as if it recognizes this place, as if it has been here before. And there is a place for you to sit. And when you do, the weight you've been carrying suddenly becomes obvious, because for the first time, you don't have to hold it up. And one by one, you begin to notice the bundles more clearly. There are bundles made of shoulds, bundles woven from old promises, bundles labeled, be better, try harder, don't disappoint. Some are heavy with other people's hopes. Some are full of unfinished conversations. And some contain versions of you that were never allowed to rest. And something remarkable happens. No one asks you to put them down or tells you which ones to keep. Instead, the fire does something subtle. It makes it safe to choose. And you realize you can place a bundle by the fire to simply set it down, just for now. And when you do, you feel the difference immediately. A softening, a lightness. You don't empty yourself all at once. You move at the pace your nervous system trusts, one bundle at a time. Some are easier to release than you expected, and others you hold for a moment longer. And that's okay. There is no urgency here. The fire does not demand sacrifice. It only offers warmth. And as the space around you clears, you notice something else. A few things remain with you. Not because you should keep them, but because they feel true. They feel alive. They are not heavy. They don't dig into your shoulders. They rest easily in your hands. One might feel like connection, and another like creativity or freedom, peace, honesty, or care. You don't need to name them perfectly. You simply recognize them by how your body responds. There is ease here, resonance, a quiet yes. This is how values reveal themselves. Through what remains when the unnecessary weight is allowed to fall away. And so you sit with these remaining bundles for a while, letting their presence settle. Letting them simply orient you, like a compass that doesn't shout directions. It only points gently toward what matters. The fire crackles softly, and the figures around you begin to nod. Not in approval, but in recognition, as if to say, yes, this belongs to you. And now, something else becomes clear. You don't have to carry everything forward right now. And you don't have to know the whole road ahead. You only need to walk with what feels aligned. And the rest can stay by the fire, safe, held, not rejected. And when you are ready, you stand. And the road beyond the hearth looks different now. Not easier or magically clear, but yours. And you take one last look at the fire, and feeling its warmth settle somewhere deep inside your chest. A steady glow, a reminder. And then, slowly, you begin to walk back. And the road rises gently again, but your steps feel lighter. And not because life has changed, but because you have. And as the scene softens and fades, you carry this knowing with you. You do not need to know everything right now. As you care for your state, and as you soften your story, your values will continue to reveal themselves, quietly, faithfully, like a hearth at the end of the road, always there when you're ready to return. Before we close today's practice, I want to offer a brief moment of orientation, a reset. Just take a moment to notice the weight of your body and the support beneath you. And ask yourself quietly, what would it feel like to let this month unfold from steadiness rather than urgency? And you don't need an answer, just notice what arises. And whenever you're ready, and not a moment before, you can feel free to gently open your eyes. And know that today's episode is a doorway. Over the next few weeks, we'll explore each element of a breakthrough more deeply. Your state, your story, and your strategy. You don't need to do all of this at once, and you don't need to rush. Let these ideas land slowly, and listen again if it helps. Let your body absorb them, not just your mind. Change doesn't begin with doing more. It begins with understanding how you work, and we're just getting started. And as we come to the end of today's episode, I want to thank you genuinely for being here, for giving yourself this time, for listening with openness, for allowing something to take root, even quietly. This week, you don't need to force change. You don't need to solve your life. Simply notice your state. Notice the stories you're telling yourself, and allow yourself a little more kindness than usual. And if you'd like to continue exploring these themes more deeply, you're welcome over on my Insight Timer channel. Just search for Ashley Bentley. There you'll find all the courses you need and gentle guided practices and yoga nidras, bedtime stories, all designed to support gentle, lasting change. And next week on Mindful Mondays, we'll continue unpacking the anatomy of a breakthrough, turning our attention more fully to state and how the condition of your nervous system shapes what feels possible, what feels safe, and what change can actually take root. Until then, be gentle with yourself. You're not behind and you're not broken. You are right on time. And remember, we are all just walking each other home.